Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
It's time to stand up, speak out, get involved, and let's be intentional.
Hello and welcome to Intentional. I am your host, Mick Meow. It is really good to be with you all today. I pray that you are blessed and beyond belief wherever you are. And thank you for taking time to be with us today. Now, if you are catching us live right now, please make sure that you drop some comments in the chat and let's just connect together. Also, be sure to subscribe. Hit that like button a couple times, share the show out. I really appreciate your support. Now today, everyone, everywhere, we have an incredible show for you. Our guest is someone who I have been blessed to speak with multiple times. He is a decorated veteran who has 20 years experience in the U.S. Armed Special Forces. He's a retired Special Forces Green Beret, Jeremy Brown. Now, before I bring him on, I want to share a little brief introduction of this man. His journey is appalling. It's alarming, and it is frightening. And it is really what I consider a wake-up call to America. It is the perfect example of the depth and the lengths that a political regime, a weaponized Department of Justice went to in an attempt to destroy and instill fear into we, the people. Jeremy Brown spent 1,245 days imprisoned. 37 of those days were after President Trump pardoned all of the J6 political prisoners. Now, you say to me, Mick, did he enter into the Capitol on January 6th? No. His real crime was refusing to be an FBI informant. Let that sink in for just a second there. Jeremy Brown attended the Stop the Steal rally on January 6th as part of a security detail for the Oath Keepers. Prior to that day, he was approached by FBI agents. He was targeted in an attempt to recruit him to work as an undercover operative to spy on patriots, everyday Americans, on January 6th. Being a highly trained Special Forces Green Beret and well-versed in unconventional warfare, he recorded the conversation. And after January 6th, he released that information to expose the truth of the Fedsurrection, correct the false narrative that was being churned out by a propaganda media, and warn Americans. Now, months later, a warrant that was based on misdemeanor charges was obtained. His home was raided for over 5 hours. Then they found these grenades that didn't have his DNA on it. They couldn't be connected back to him in any way. They were presented along with some other bogus classified document nonsense that they had collected or found. He was arrested on trespassing charges for J6. Now, remember, he didn't go into the Capitol. He was tried on the supposed evidence that was found and was sentenced to 7 years for crimes not related to January 6th. Now, I am personally grateful that Jeremy Brown and the J6ers have been released. And I am very thankful that Jeremy is with us today and that he can speak to us. But in my humble opinion, this chapter is not closed. It is not ended. It is not a done deal. Our justice system is weak. It's vulnerable. It's broken. And the J6 complete and total truth, not the inaccurate, subverted version that is still far from even being revealed, is going on out there. Welcome with me, everybody, Jeremy Brown. Hello, my friend. It's good to see you in the flesh.
Well, it's good to see you for the first time ever, Nick.
I know. That's the great thing, right? I mean, I think it's fabulous that we don't have to do the, your call will be disconnected in 1 minute. Okay, hang on, everybody, and then reconnect back in.
Yes, that very rude lady is just one of the many women that I've gotten out of my life in the recent months. So, yeah, we can talk as freely as we'd like.
Yeah, absolutely. And we could go on for hours and nobody can interrupt us. And that's the great part.
That's right.
I know you heard my caterwaul. I kind of went off on a little tangent there, but that's what I do, Jeremy. I mean, you've interviewed with me, and if I misspoke about anything, I really want you to kind of like clear the deck. Set the record straight, okay? So if there was anything out there that I misspoke on, I want you to correct me on it, okay?
No, I mean, look, we've talked numerous times while I was incarcerated, and the bottom line is that, they are currently underway trying to sweep January 6th under the rug, like they swept COVID under the rug, like they swept the 2008 financial collapse under the rug, like they swept 9/11 under the rug, because they can't continue to do what they do to us if we continue to remember. And so, it's beyond that. And what I've mainly been focused on since, my 40 days of silence once I was released on February 26th. I took 40 days, and basically I did one interview the very next day I was released. But after that, I kind of focused on getting as settled as I could, as quickly as I could. But since I've come back out and in this last week and a half doing interviews, my main focus has been accountability. Right now that we have released all the illegally imprisoned J6ers, now we need to hold those that illegally put them in prison. We need to put them in prison, right? It is about accountability, because without accountability, the criminals will just continue to do the things that they do. Just like if you don't hold your children accountable when they're little, they're going to grow up to be little spoiled brats, and they're not going to ever listen to you, right? So if we want our government to listen to us, and if we want the criminals to stop committing crime, then we need to hold them accountable when they do such. Otherwise, we're just simply showing them how to get away with their crimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, can I backtrack for a minute? You said 40 days. Was there a significance to that? Because it's a significant a number in the Bible. I just didn't know if there was a.
Well, I mean, it's significant in the Bible. It's significant, no matter how. I mean, look, there's power in numbers, right? In Chinese culture, they carry the number 8 around in their wallets because there's financial significance associated with numbers. There's always significance to certain numbers. So yes, of course, 40 days is a significant number, not only in biblical, history, but also, just in general. I mean, look, when I was a young Ranger, we sat on the USS America for 40 days and 40 nights before we were returned back to Savannah, Georgia. After the invasion of Haiti, after the Rangers and Delta Force and Navy SEALs weren't needed for that operation anymore. So there's always a significance to numbers. And so, yeah, I mean, I picked that number because I wanted it to have some level of significance. And granted, I'm not at 100%. In fact, I was just on the phone today with the Veterans Administration, which, they talk about PTSD, but I've developed a post-traumatic Veterans Affairs disorder. And that is anytime you have to go on the phone with the Veterans Affairs, or, there's probably a disorder for the DMV as well.
Right.
And so that's what those are the types of things that I'm still having to deal with. But we are getting I'm getting my life back in order. I've got my elderly mother now lives with me here in the Villages, which is America's friendliest hometown. I've got a new girlfriend, and so we're rebuilding. Rebuilding my life one step at a time, and it lends to another sidebar, which is the surveillance state, right?
Yeah.
If you don't know how surveilled you are, try to throw your telephone into the garbage and change your address, and then try to start any type of account that there is on the planet, right? If you do not, if all of your information does not match, and they will know why, because of the surveillance state, right? If you change one little piece of information, that anybody that you're signing up with, I mean, I tried to sign up with Credit Karma, right? Which I already have an account. I cannot access it because why? Because my phone number is different, my address is different, and no matter what you tell them, they don't care, because they don't believe you that you're you, because their surveillance state provided information database does not match you. Therefore, you don't exist.
Like send a drop of blood through on your phone. Ding.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And so I spent quite a bit of time with the Veterans Affairs today. So now what do they have to do? They have to mail me something, I guess, to verify that I am who I am. So these are the types of things that I've been dealing with since released in prison. But it's like they used to say in finance. I would gladly pay taxes on $1 million, because that means you have $1 million. I will gladly suffer through all of these pains in my ass because it just simply means that I'm free and I'm actually rebuilding my life. I'm not looking to trade back into my prison cell. So I'll deal with it.
Right. Well, you kind of brought me to where I wanted to go, because, the last time we talked was 8 months ago, back in August, after you were presented like the detailed packet of the plea deal with all the legalese jargon in it, and you were denied your motion to stay in Florida, and right before they shipped you off to DC. So I want to cover some ground with you, but I did want to kind of see how your reacclimation was going, what that process kind of looked like. It sounds like maybe there's some thumbs up, but any surprises, any shocks, anything that you were like, wait, this doesn't look like America?
Wait, yeah. I mean, it was the word that we used as soon as I was released, as we drove down, I-75 on our way back to Florida from Atlanta, was weird. Everything was weird, and so, the reintegrate. Look, I've only really cried 2 times since I've been released from prison, and both of them, one was setting up my cell phone and the other, I think, was setting up my computer, because like, how the hell does anybody get any of this stuff done? So so yeah, I mean, but what you don't realize, being a free person over the last 1250 days, 75 days, however long it's been now, is that all these changes were incremental to you, but to me, they all happened at one time, right? I went into a time warp, over 3 years ago. And when I walked out of that time warp, my mind was stuck, because you don't have exposure to all these incremental changes in culture and technology while you're in prison. You're just sitting in a 10 by 8-foot cell or whatever the size is, and you're just trying to make sure that you're looking the other way when your roommate uses the bathroom that's only 18 inches away from your head. So when you walk out of the prison, you're still 3 years ago. It's kind of like while I was referring to it as the scene from Austin Powers when he was unfrozen, and he's still stuck in the 60s, and now he's flash forwarded in time, and so cars look different, phones operated differently. Luckily, though, the menu at Outback was still the same, so I was happy with that.
There you go. Go for the bloom and onion. Of course, mine is the Gold Coast coconut shrimp. I dip that sucker in blue cheese, and it's just.
I'm an Aussie cheese fry guy myself, but there is a funny little sidebar. Our waitress, of course, after I showered and left a disgusting film on the hotel bathtub. After having washed the USP Atlanta off of me, we went to Outback, and our waitress's name was Miranda. And I said, is that some kind of sick joke by the FBI? And of course she laughed, and we all had a good time.
We have a comment there. Kevin wants to know, how long were you down for? I'm assuming that's how long you were in prison for. 1,245 days. Is that right, Jeremy?
Yeah, but who was counting?
Right. Yeah, exactly. I kind of want to talk a little bit about, I don't know, just kind of your journey here, because we've had multiple conversations. We talked about the corruption throughout the government. You guys can go back through and find my Rumble channel. Jeremy and I have done multiple interviews together. They're always fabulous. And some of them were almost 2 hours. They're amazing. The amount of information that was poured out. But there was like this obvious two-tier justice system. We've talked about that and how it was weaponized against we the people, and the J6ers were sort of made this example to create the psychological fear effect. And you were either crushed if you stood up and spoke out, or people just sat down and were quiet and didn't say anything and just nodded along, But on the last show that we did back in August, you spoke of a plea deal and how it was designed to really confuse people, frustrate those who are imprisoned. It was presented to you with the hopes of like triggering your emotions, using words like seditious conspiracy. And you said these words to me, and I wrote them down because they were important. You said that the purpose was to have a lose to win mentality, the process of punishment mentality. And I always remember that you talked about the setting the goal, or that the Department of Corrections was really setting the goal of breaking the person, just to say, stop, give me some freedom. I'll do whatever you want. And I wondered, for those in the audience who haven't heard what went on, because we were out here opining, right? I mean, we're just over here talking amongst ourselves, but you're living the reality on the inside. And I wonder if you could maybe connect for us what that journey looked like, Jeremy.
Well, yeah, what the journey is. All right, first of all, if you do not know what your rights are as a citizen, well, then you will have them trampled on. Okay. And the reality is, and this is a discussion that I actually had with a supporter that visited me in DC, because see, here in Florida, we have a sheriff here that loves to go on television and hold these comical, make fun of the people that he arrests. But see, here's just one problem with that, is that the Fifth Amendment gives us a right to due process. Okay. And so if we have, as conservatives, who typically we're the law and order party, right? We're the ones that we back the blue, right? I'm not saying that I do those things, because obviously these are all psychological catchphrases, so that we don't realize that our rights are being trampled by these exact same people, right? But if we fall into the trap of saying, well, that is a criminal because our sheriff told us he is in this press conference, and we saw his picture on the news media, well, then we are going to someday have our picture at a sheriff's press conference and our face plastered all over the news media, of which none of us trust, right? Until they tell us that so-and-so is a drug dealer, or so-and-so is an abuser, or so-and-so is a terrorist, right? So we have to realize that our understanding of our rights apply to everyone. Okay, this is the first mistake we make as conservatives, or as those that proclaim that we are for law and order. You can be for law and order without violating the rights of the criminals, because see, even if they commit crimes, they still have rights. And if we don't protect their rights, well, then who's going to protect our rights? Okay. And so when a government official stands in front of a television camera that's going to be broadcast by a willing media that Mick Rosario was arrested today on accusations that she doesn't like kittens, even though her show is called Mick Meow, right? If we allow and cheer for that, and all the cat owners say, yeah, throw that Mick Meow under the prison, right? Well, we're violating your Fifth Amendment rights to due process. Why? Because due process is the presumption of innocence. It means that anything that leads anyone to believe that you are guilty without a public trial that is provided to you by the Sixth Amendment of the United States Constitution, well, then they are violating your due process. Okay, so that's one. So the Eighth Amendment states that you are not to be, that excessive bail shall not be granted. What is bail? Bail serves one purpose and one purpose only, as far as the Constitution is concerned. I'm not talking about scumbag lawyers and judges. I'm talking about as far as the founding fathers intended for bail to serve the purpose of, it's one thing, and that is to ensure your presence at your public trial, for which you have a Sixth Amendment right to, right? That is it. It's not to protect the country from you because some judge or some prosecutor lies and says that you're a threat to the community. It's not to do any of that. It is simply to ensure your presence at your trial. Why? Because you're innocent until that trial happens, right? And yet the Bail Reform Act has given judges the leeway to basically deny bail for everything. I mean, when I was in Citrus County Resort for Threats to Democracy, aka the Citrus County Jail, I would get papers that would circulate through. And if you go to the law and order section, or whatever they call it, right? Some propaganda term by the media to make you think that whatever you're reading there is perfectly fine, right? You go to the law and order section and it is like, this person stole a bicycle, denied bond. This person jaywalk, denied bond. This person sold meth, denied bond. Why is everyone perfectly okay with everyone's Eighth Amendment right being violated? Well, the reason is because we've been told by sheriffs and news reporters and politicians and judges and scumbag lawyers that, well, these people are criminals. And so we all go, well, I'm not a criminal. So yeah, we should deny bond for these criminals because we don't want to be unsafe, right? But the reality is that if you think someone is unsafe, well, then set the bail amount appropriately. And when that person posts bail, they're not going to want to violate it. Why? Because they're going to have to then pay or be responsible for whatever the terms of that bail is. And yet that is not what has happened in America. They have incrementally and slowly created this mindset that we all just accept, which is we denied bond. Why? Because they're a threat to the community or they're a flight risk. Well, yeah, they're a flight risk. So therefore you set the bail at a pain point for which they won't want to forfeit. And if they do forfeit it, congratulations. We no longer have to pay for transcripts because that guy's asset seizure, because he jumped bail, will now pay for all the documentations that they charge on top of already the taxes, right? And then it will give the U.S. Marshals something to do other than sit in a courtroom and listen to the judiciary destroy all of our rights. So yes, the plea system utilizes a convergence of all these right violations, right? our violation of due process when the government sends a spokesman out there to bash us and defame us in front of the media before we've ever had a trial. Then they deny us bond. Why? Because guess what? You know how hard it is to prepare for trial when you're in jail at the whim of whatever scumbag attorney that you've wound up with, right? Now, if he doesn't want to answer the phone Monday through Monday, 8 o'clock until 8 o'clock, well, guess what? You're not going to have any legal representation. If he decides to file some motion that you didn't even submit to you before he files it in front of the judge, which has blatant errors and results in your conviction, well, it doesn't matter. Why? Because you're in jail. You can't do anything about it. And why are you in jail? Because they denied your bond. So the DOJ knows this, right? All of these are tools of coercion and extortion and bribery, right? They're bribing you with pain, okay? They're saying, hey, look, we know you're in pain because we put you in pain.
Right.
But if you want the pain to stop, well, all you got to do is just agree to all of our ridiculous terms. Oh, yeah, and waive all your rights. And that was the discussion that we had back in August, because that is exactly the system for which we live under. And it is the exact same system that was used in the Soviet Union, admitted to by a CNN reporter who was, when interviewing someone about the Evan Gershkovich hostage crisis, right? The Wall Street Journal reporter that was held in Russia for way less time than I was held by my government. This CNN beautiful face that is put up there to read the prompter says to them, well, you know, in Russia, they have a 99% conviction rate. Well, that's, you know, whatever term, that's tyranny or whatever. Well, guess what, sweetheart? That's the exact same conviction rate that the Department of Justice has. So guess what? We are Soviet America. Why? Because we don't have a two-tier justice system. We have a one-tier justice system, and that is rules for thee, but not for me. See, if I offered a McDonald's hamburger for lunch to somebody who testified in my defense, I would be charged with bribery. And yet the DOJ can pay for transportation. They can pay for expert witnesses. They can do all of these things, right? If and I'm not gonna lie to you, I submitted the concept at my misdemeanor trial in DC. I said, I want to be pro se, yet I want my attorney to sit second chair, right? So in other words, I'm going to be my own lawyer, but I want an actual scumbag bar association approved lawyer who apparently has been trained in the law, right? That's an exact quote from a judge that I was sitting and listening to a judge hold arraignments for a massive guys at the Pinellas County Jail. And the guy said, I want to represent myself. And the judge asked him, but have you been trained in the law? Well, the law doesn't need to be trained in. The law should have been written so that the average citizen can understand it and then follow it, right? I mean, so what training do you need, right? This is the same issue with our Constitution. We don't need a constitutional scholar to explain the 17-page document that's pretty straightforward, okay? And yet this is what they want, right? They want you to only understand the Constitution through their perception of the Constitution. And let me tell you, it's not the accurate perception. So I wanted to be my own attorney. Why? Because I know my case the best. I've actually read the Constitution. I've read the statutes, and I've also read their stupid rules of criminal procedure, right? Which are just rules, not laws, and definitely not rights, okay? But this is what they go by. And I wanted to have an attorney there as well to guide me through Robert's Rules of Order and all this other stupid things that they try to make you think is official, or else you won't be able to get justice, right? And I was told, oh, well, you can't do that. But yet the DOJ had 15 prosecutors over the course of 3 years assigned to my case. And at many times it have 3 or 4 different attorneys sitting at the table in, like, for example, my felony trial. So why is it that I can't have an attorney helping me acting as my own attorney? Well, because Well, that's just the way it is, right? If you would have been trained in the law, you would know why, right? And so they utilize all of these things that they've just created out of thin air, right? That they've just made up for their own advantage. And once you put them all together, they get a 99% conviction rate, just like Soviet Russia.
There you go. There you go. I mean, it's just, it's maddening. And we saw it over and over and over. But I have to ask you, you know, they held you for 37 days post the pardon from President Trump to release you. Why? Did they ever tell you why? Did they ever broach that subject? Did anybody ever bring that up? Well, I mean, I know we did on social media, and I saw your lawyer had done multiple interviews. But did they ever come to you? Did they ever talk about it? Did you ever get an answer to that?
To this day, we still have no idea what happened, right? Here's the reality. I was the guy that you're supposed to forget about, right? Like Building 7. I'm the Building 7 of January 6th, okay? You're not supposed to think about Building 7. You're not supposed to ask questions about Building 7. You're not supposed, like, I'm the Building 7 of January 6th. Why? Because I have the recording of the agent, right? So the FBI and the DOJ denied that they ever attempted to recruit me. They simply say, oh no, we just interviewed him as part of an investigation. There was no investigation. I have the documents, at least the documents that they provided in discovery, right? They say on the recording, well, we don't have to get you signed up today and fingerprinted, but you know, the government pays for information, right? That's recruiting, right? That's not investigating. Okay. So to this day, if you called the FBI field office in Tampa and said, hey, did you guys ever recruit Jeremy Brown to be a confidential human source? They'll say, no. Even though we have the audio recording, we have the transcripts, you can read it all for yourself, right? Then after the pardon, the DOJ says, oh, well, he's held on separate charges unrelated to January 6th, except for this one big problem is that there's documents, right? The FBI came with a January 6th related search warrant for explosives and weapons, right? And that's what they claim they found, right? So then how would this not be January 6th related? Then there was the trial where they talk about January 6th. Then there was the sentencing where they talk about January 6th. Then we file an appeal and then they respond about January 6th, right? And then the courts accept those arguments about January 6th. And then the DOJ says, that case didn't have anything to do with January 6th. Surprise, we have the evidence and the documents. So what you had following January 20th was the bad guys that are still to this day being promoted within the DOJ, which is another topic and the reason why I wore my Jeremy Brown should be the FBI director t-shirt. They're still being promoted. These demonic psychopaths like Steven Jensen, who Dan Bongino and Kash Patel just promoted to the deputy director of the Washington field office, who was basically the equivalent of the Salem witch trial, army, right, against J6ers. And then you have conservative media like Sean Davis, the CEO of the Federalist, coming out claiming that J6ers complaining about this, well, that was just manufactured outrage. Well, you know what? Clearly you're one of the bad guys, Mr. Davis. And if you have any questions about J6, feel free to contact me. And if you'd like to sue me for defamation, by all means, contact Mick Meow. I will authorize her to release my cell phone number to you, and you can have your attorney come sue me, right? Because when you know something wrong has happened and you turn a blind eye and you do nothing about it, or you promote those that did the bad thing, well, then that in essence makes you guilty by association. So, look, I mean, there is a lot still going on, and they tried to beat all hell to just allow me to fade away, right? But you know, I was in communication with some very staunch supporters, yourself and many others, actual everyday Americans that would not allow it to die. That, like I told them to do, your new battle cry is that's not good enough. And, you know, there's only two ways to get a politician to do anything in life. Either give them millions of dollars, right?
Right.
Or shame them publicly and threaten their ability to collect millions of dollars from other scumbags, right? This is
Right.
the only way you're going to get a politician to do anything. And apparently it took 37 days to convince these scumbags that Jeremy Brown is better out of prison than he is in prison for their political futures.
Right. So let me ask you this. Is the matter closed? Is it done? I mean, there's no, I mean, you know, the pardon is finished. There's no backdoor Mr. Sneaky Man way that they're gonna, you know, do something stupid like try and put everybody back in prison.
Well, of course, there's always backdoor sneaky ways that they can do anything. They
Yeah,
don't, they
right.
don't follow the
Well,
rules, right?
sorry
They don't
about that.
follow the law.
So,
If-
sorry, my
look,
brain.
Yeah, they'll felony charge me with jaywalking if they catch me.
Yeah.
It is closed from their standpoint, meaning that a federal judge, Judge Meraday in the Middle District of Florida, has accepted the DOJ's Rule 48 motion, which basically said overturn the conviction, dismiss the indictment with prejudice, meaning they can't bring it back up. The judge has accepted that motion. So my conviction was overturned and dismissed like ServPro. It never even happened. Okay. And then the 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals has accepted our motion to dismiss the appeal based on the fact that it's now moot because there is no conviction to appeal at the 11th Circuit. So judicially, it is over as far as they're concerned. However, it is not over for me by a long shot, right? That is the end of phase 2, which was the false imprisonment phase of this operation, right? There was the setup and the setting of trap phase, right? They set me up and I set traps against them. That was phase 1. Then they falsely imprisoned me. That was phase 2. Now is phase 3, which I affectionately refer to as my turn, okay? Now, we will build all of our civil cases. We will seek criminal indictments against these individuals. We will go after the media. We will go after the agents. We will go after the departments and agencies. And we will go after prosecutors and judges and even defense attorneys that were engaged in shenanigans. Because let me tell you that not everyone out there on the planet that appears to be good is good. And you can be good to 10 people, but if you murder the 11th, you're a murderer, okay? So it doesn't matter all the good that you did. It's not going to be canceled out by the nature of the bad that you did. And that is where we are now. We're in the my phase, phase 3, the my turn phase of this operation. And then, of course, phase 4, once we win, will be the education of the next generations as to all of the mistakes that we have made, you and I, that we as Americans have made that put us into this situation. So hopefully that our grandchildren will not have to deal with this. So no, it is not over for me by a long shot, which is why, you know, to this day, I didn't cross out abolish it and write thank you up there simply because after over 3 years of being falsely imprisoned, they decide to let me out. No, that's not good enough. Okay. I want people responsible for this coup against the American people and myself, of course, to be held accountable. I want to visit Mark Milley and whoever else, which I love to make fun of Mark Milley because he's an embarrassment to the Special Forces community. But I want people like Mark Milley and Christopher Wray to be held in a Bureau of Prisons facility so that I can visit them through the glass, and over the handset, I can say, is everything okay, Chris? Do you need commissary money? Because I'm going to put $17.76 on there just so you know that it's from me. Okay. That will be the appropriate level of accountability for these scumbags because they broke the law and they should not be allowed to get away with it.
Absolutely, 100%. And I'm glad that you talked about that, because you had several goals, and you talked about it on multiple times where we interviewed together about exposing the truth of January 6th. You talked about exposing the false belief that the use of the judicial system is for we the people, and you talked about exposing the corrupt federal government and judicial system, and we are here for it, Jeremy. I mean, I'm on my seat going in my head going, yes, I'll come, I'll record, because this is what is needed, because they're not done, they're not going to stop. We do have a comment in the chat, though, from Cameron, who said, is there any advice you can give families who have people coming from prison to help with the adjustment?
Yeah. So the first amount of advice I would say is there are, and I've learned about these since I've been out. Of course, I didn't have much of information about this when I was in, but there are quite a few organizations that have set up, made up of, true patriots that want to help J6ers. Okay. And, a good resource to look up some of those. And I'm sure that there's many, many more. And if I forget any, I apologize, because even I don't know them myself, but stophate.com, right? Run by David Summerall and Trennis Evans and Tim Rivers and Suzanne Monk and all those guys that have been working together from the Pardon Project to the Patriot Mail Project. All these great patriots have they've been basically coordinating and bringing a lot of these organizations, and you can find a lot of those organizations. At least I was able to see a lot of the organizations on David's site at stophate.com, and look into those organizations. Let them know that you are J6er or that you are the family of a J6er, and I guarantee you that they're going to be able to help. The second thing, and really for me personally, has been just be patient with us, right? I mean, I took that time off. I was turning down interviews, and to be honest with you, there are people that are attacking me today because I didn't get in touch with them, or I didn't, coordinate a welcome home party, or there's all kinds of craziness that is happening. When in reality, I'm crying because I can't set up my cell phone, right? I'm in a hotel, just happy to be able to hug my mother. And so, look, give the J6er that spent that time in prison space. They need it, okay? I think there's a good Jelly Roll song, right? It says, I'm not doing okay, but everything will be all right, or something along that. That's pretty much the sentiment that I know I have felt, and I guarantee you that they have felt much worse, because at least while I was in jail, I knew what I was doing, right? And the government has spent millions of dollars training me how to handle being a prisoner of war as a special forces operator. So I guarantee you, I don't have some of the struggles that those who simply were at J6 caught in the trap of the American Reichstag false flag coup operation against them, right? They just went there to express their First Amendment rights. And then the next thing they know, they're being locked away in prison. They're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on scumbags that just take their money and don't help them at all. Their maybe they've gone through divorces, maybe they've lost their house. I mean, Fidelity Investment. Let me give a negative plug to Fidelity Investment, okay? Since we're on the topic of scumbags, all right?
Okay.
I've had a 401k with Fidelity Investments for nearly 3 decades, okay? So, of course, in the villages, I like to deal with people face to face. We go into the Fidelity Investments office, and I say, hey, I'm locked out of my account, and I would like to resolve that matter. Here's all the documentation, all my court records, my presidential pardon. And they say, nope, you're not allowed to have an account with us ever again. And I said, well, why? Right? Because you violated our terms of use. Well, what term? I asked. And they said, we don't have to tell you. And I said, okay, well, who can I talk to get to the bottom of this? They're like, there's no one you can talk to. You can call the number, but they're just going to tell you the same thing. So I hope through my defense fund to be able to raise enough money so that I can pay you the average American citizen who might be utilizing Fidelity Investments to leave them. I will pay, I'm going to raise money so that I can pay a reward to anyone that takes their money out of Fidelity. So that's something that I'm working on, because but then again, look, they got the all-seeing eye as their logo. Can you really expect anything different from them? All right. But if you currently have your money with Fidelity Investment, I strongly suggest that you pull your money out of it, because if you're watching this show, it means that they hate you. Okay. So pull your money out of Fidelity. I think Charles Schwab or anybody, call them before you give them access to your money. Say, hi, I love America. And so if I love America and I'm targeted by those that hate America, are you going to close down all my accounts? And if they say, no, we love America too, well, then by golly, put your money with those. They're just trading platforms. They all do the exact same damn thing. But Fidelity Investment does not love America, and they certainly don't love people that do love America and attempt to stand up for it. So you should definitely pull your money out. And I wish that I had the money to pay you to do it today, but someday soon, utilizing another trading platform, I will make enough money to be able to pay you to put your money elsewhere.
Jeremy, we've got about 4 minutes left. I want to give you the last word, and then we're going to hop over and we're going to do a extra segment on my Rumble channel. And I'll tell you all about it. But Jeremy, I want to give you the last word. I'm just laughing over here. That's hilarious.
Well, look, unfortunately, this won't be the last word, right? Like I said, This isn't over for me. I will tell you there is a concerted effort to sweep January 6th under the rug, right? They want to utilize the fact that President Trump pardoned everybody and he commuted some sentences, and those who continued to fight their case and left those cases open are now subject to having no cases at all. Their convictions were completely overturned. Think about how unfair this is. Simply because I did not trust nor believe anything that my scumbag representation might have said to me over the 3 years that I fought my case. And I continue to appeal. Now, don't get me wrong. I have some good attorneys, right? But if I would have said, listened to what I'm sure the other J6s heard, which is, oh, you don't have an appeal, or I'll file an appeal. Oopsie, I forgot. Now your case is closed, right? Simply because those people trusted people that they thought they could trust, and their cases actually legally closed. Well, now they're convicted felons and miscreants for the rest of their life, right? Because see, a pardon is simply an acceptance of guilt. All it does is offset and stop the punishment for your actions, but it does not expunge your record. It does not reduce the effects. You are still a felon if your case closed and you're a felon, right? Those that just had their sentences commuted, they're definitely still felons. So they can't buy guns, allegedly. They can't vote in most states, right? And so the pardon did not fix January 6th. It basically gave Americans the opportunity to forget about January 6th. But see, we should not allow that to happen, right? No. Just like we shouldn't have allowed any of the things that we all know history has proven that the government has lied to us about, right? And so if we continue to keep pressure on, like we're still trying to get investigations done by Congress, good luck. We're still trying to testify in front of Congress, and they are still ignoring us. Why? Because they're hoping that you, the American people, forget. Do not forget, and even more so, do not stop acting in order to allow them to forget, because that's what they want. They want to just sweep it under the rug like it never even happened. And I'm not going to allow that to happen to myself personally. Right.
And I remember the words that you always said, and you probably still say it, is don't do nothing. Jeremy, this is a great conversation. I am so glad to see you face to face. We want to continue on, or at least I do. I've missed my friend. So everyone, please go to my Rumble channel. It's at Intentional with Mick Meow. Jeremy and I are going to hop off here. We're going to hop, skip, and jump. We're going to go over there. We're going to continue on the conversation. If you want to join us in 5, we should be up here in just a moment. Remember, resistance is not futile, and blessings to you all, always.
It's time to stand up, speak out, get involved, and let's be intentional.